Good morning, happy Sabbath. It's time for Children's Story. And today our lesson comes from the book of Judges, where we will learn about a young man by the name of Gideon. Now, of course, our story takes place a long time ago, before TV and video games. So, Gideon was from a small tribe named Manasseh in Judah, part of the land of Israel. And they were very poor, and he was kind of considered to be the runt. As a matter of fact, he said of himself, "I'm the least in my family." So he had a little bit of a self-image problem, and we'll see where that comes into the story a little bit later when we talk about signs and prayers. So, the nation of Israel had done what they usually do. They'd forgotten who God was. And they set up idols to worship Ishtar and Baal, copycatting their neighbors instead of honoring the one true God. Well, God said, okay, I'll let you have your way. You can do what you want to. All right. And for 7 years, their neighbors, the Midianites, were at war with them. And for 7 years, every fall when it was time to harvest their food, the Midianites would go out ahead of harvest time, take all the food out of the field, and then burn what was left. So, of course, the Israelites, that tribe, was very, very hungry. Well, they cried out to God, "What shall we do?" Well, here's where Gideon comes in. One day he was out in the field. He was crying out to God along with some friends, and an angel approached him and said, "Hey, you are a mighty man of valor." And Gideon said, Who? Who, me? You talking to me? And he said, "Yes, you. You know what? God is displeased with the people. You want to know what you can do? You can tear down all of those idols to Ishtar and Baal." So Gideon and the young men did do so. Well, the next day, when they found all of their false idols broken down and toppled to the ground, the community was mad. Who did this? Who gave you permission to do this? Well, Gideon and the young men let the folk know it was us. Well, some of them were super mad, just totally angry. But Gideon went on to do his business. And then another day, as he was thinking about all of what had happened, the Lord spoke to him and said, "You know what, Gideon, I've got a job for you to do. I want you to lead an army against the Midianites because I think you're serious. I think you really want to do this thing. Get it done." And Gideon said, "Okay, you talking to me? You talking to me? Really? I don't think I can do this. I really don't." Well, God said, "No, I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you." And Gideon said, "Well, I want to be used, but I need to know that you are talking to me because I doubt myself. And I believe you, but I need more faith. So help me understand. This is what I want to ask of you, God. Can I ask you for a sign?" He said, "I want to take some lamb's wool and I want to leave it out in the night. And what I'm asking you is for a miracle, for a sign, really. Now, I expect for this to be wet in the morning, but if you could make sure that the ground all around it is dry, then I'll know that you're talking to me." So God said, "I will honor your request for a sign." So when Gideon got up the next day, he went back to where he had laid the fleece out in the field, and it was wet. Just like that. He was able to squeeze all the water out of it. And as he had asked, the ground around it was dry. He said, "Okay, God, that was good. But it makes sense that the fleece would be wet because of the dew in the morning. So this time we're going to flip it. This time I'm going to ask for the sign that the fleece be dry, but the ground all around it be dry, be wet. The fleece be dry, the ground all around it wet. He went out to check the next day. He found the fleece, and it was dry. He said, okay, now I know that you're talking to me. Now, what's the lesson in this story about Gideon asking for signs and making a prayer? It's good for us to doubt ourselves, because sometimes we can just think that we're just all that and that we can just go out and do whatever we want and not ask God about it. But God says that he wants us to ask him first to find out what his will is. And he's okay if we ask for a sign. He's all right with that because he knows that we're weak. He said, "O ye of little faith, so slow to believe all that the prophets have told you." So it's okay to ask God a question. It's okay to ask God for a sign. Well, what else about Gideon's story, asking for a sign and making a prayer? Well, sometimes you'll find out, as he did in that original, where he tore down the Ishtar poles and the Baal idols, that sometimes people will get angry with you for doing what God said do. And it'll make you doubt yourself. But God doesn't want you to doubt yourself. He wants you to believe him. And the third thing about Gideon's story is this, and I love this song by Casting Crowns. And I'm going to read the lyrics because sometimes when I get nervous, I can't remember what I'm doing. We need to listen to God because he has the voice of truth. And when people tell us that we'll never win, that what we're doing is not what God wants, here's what the lyrics say. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says, this is for God's glory. And out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. Go ahead and ask God for a sign. He'll honor your faith, and he'll grow it by answering. Have a happy Sabbath.